Welcome in to today's Belly Up MMA Show, presented by Manscaped. That's right. We are presented by Manscaped today. And right now, you can go to manscaped.com and type in the promo code Belly Up Fantasy. You're going to get 20% off your next purchase. That's right. Manscaped.com, promo code Belly Up Fantasy. And that'll get you 20% off your next order. That'll be scrolling across the bottom of the screen throughout the entire episode today. So make sure you go visit manscaped.com, taking care of all your manly grooming needs, and use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY for 20% off your next order. Thank you for joining us today. We are getting ready to celebrate UFC 260. Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. Looking for that big title belt. Miocic looking to retain, and Francis Ngannou is looking for and new at the end of the fight tonight. We'll get to them at last on the episode today. This UFC 260 card is quite the interesting card. Honestly, not the strongest card put together by the UFC this year. Had they not lost the Volkanovski and Ortega fight, it would be definitely stronger. Nonetheless, kind of hurting in this card. You look at these fighters, there's a lot of guys looking for redemption on this card. Not a lot of guys that are coming off of hot streaks and win streaks and things like that. It's just not happening on the UFC 260 card tonight. There will be 10 total fights, 1 on the early prelims, 4 in the prelims, and 5 on the main card pay-per-view through ESPN+. They had 6 fights that had to get canceled. Johnny Walker was injured, so he had to pull out against Jimmy Crute. Volkanovski had COVID versus Ortega. Randa Marcos also had a COVID situation, so her fight versus Luana Pinheiro is off. Jessica Penne versus Hannah Goldie off because of Goldie's COVID situation as well. Blagoy Ivanov was injured, had to pull out. Marcin Terrera, they'll have to find a new dance partner there. And then Alonzo Menifield, he is on the card, originally scheduled to fight William Knight due to a COVID situation. Knight had to pull out, so Menifield will kind of be the headliner on the prelim card, going up against a UFC debut in Fabio Charant there as well. And so it'll be interesting to see. That's the only one that they replaced the fighter on out of the 6 fights that had to be canceled. Only one of them got a replacement fight tonight. One of the interesting things about this UFC 260 card, 13 of the 20 fighters are coming off of losses. This is not normal for so much of the card to be coming directly off of a loss. And that's what I mean by this card is not stacked as some of the cards have been. These are fighters that are looking to get redemption. They're looking to get a win again. Some of these coming off of losing streaks. Some of them are just off of 1 loss, whatever it may be. Several of these fighters are young in the UFC that have only had 1 or 2 or 3 fights in the UFC. So they're still trying to earn their next contract, earn their continued stay in the UFC. 6 fighters on tonight's card do not have a winning record in the UFC. Either they have a losing record or they're right there at the 500 mark, 1-1, 2-2, whatever it may be from there. So 6 fighters without a winning record in the UFC. Only 1 fighter debuting tonight. We already mentioned that. That is Fabio Charant against Alonzo Menifield, the last fight of the prelims tonight. Everybody else has been in the UFC for at least 1 fight. But that 13 fighters coming off of a loss blows my mind to see how, as stacked as the cards have been, to find this many fighters to go against to fight tonight that are coming off a loss, to me, is really incredible. So what I think we're going to see tonight on this card is desperation. I think we're going to see people pushing the pace. I think we're going to see people fighting for their lives, fighting for their UFC lives. People who have the opportunity to fight in the greatest of all MMA arenas, looking to stay there. Last week, we saw a UFC debut in Harry Hunsucker. He went up against Bam Bam Tuivasa, got knocked out early in the first round. And in talking with him and seeing what he has posted as well, he gets his UFC contract, which gives him an opportunity to have a full fight camp. He came in on 4 days' notice against a Tuivasa who Hunsucker just wasn't ready for. And so the UFC is being a little patient with some of these early guys, as we'll see a number of fighters here tonight that have losing records in the UFC so far. And so let's see if they can maintain and stay and keep their way here. Before we get into our picks tonight, a couple of things to talk about. First of all, Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. There's been a lot of arguments over should Dustin Poirier be fighting for the title as opposed to being left out of it. But the truth is Dustin Poirier chose the money fight with Conor McGregor over an opportunity with the belt. Smart move for Dustin Poirier, I believe. And I also believe what has been said that the UFC offered Poirier the title fight if he wanted it. He has chosen to go with the money and Conor McGregor. Juliana Pena is being announced as the most likely next fighter for Amanda Nunes. So she'll get the next opportunity to knock off the champ. Miesha Tate, unretiring after 4 years out. She'll be fighting Marion Renault. This is an interesting fight. That should be one she should definitely win. But to have her come out of retirement, she's coming back. She's saying, I'm going for it all. I want the belt. And that's what she's going for. The biggest news in mixed martial arts this week was the fact that the April 24th UFC 261 is sold out in Jacksonville, Florida. That's right. We're coming back to fans in the arena, not just fans in the arena, fans packed in the arena. And, we are excited to celebrate our freedoms again in America. Whether you stand on either side of it, I can tell you this much. It will be exciting to hear a crowd chanting, screaming, cheering at UFC 261. Some great fights on that card there, and looking forward to it as well. Of course, Usman and Masvidal are the main event of that card on April the 24th in Jacksonville. It's going to be just incredible to have a packed-out stadium. I know there are many that disagree with it, and that is your right. But I, for one, do not. I am ecstatic to see it happen again. Usman, Masvidal are the main event. Zhang Weili, Rose Namajunas, they're fighting as well. And then Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade, the other title fights there that night, the flyweight and strawweight title fights. Uriah Hall makes his return since his beatdown of Anderson Silva. He'll be going up against Chris Weidman, Anthony Smith, and Jimmy Crute scheduled there as well. Alex Oliveira and Randy Brown is on there. So a lot of good fights. That one will definitely be fully stacked as the sellout crowd in Jacksonville is there. 3 title fights, the second time this year that we've seen that. A few more fight nights, though, in between tonight and that UFC 261. There will be a break next weekend. No fights, UFC fights next weekend. April 10th will be Darren Till and Marvin Vettori on UFC Fight Night. There are a few exciting fighters on that one as well. Kyle Dacus is on that one. Sam Alvey is back. Mackenzie Dern's in there. Mike Perry. So several good fighters are going to be on that April 10th card. April the 17th, a great fight. Robert Whitaker versus Kelvin Gastelum. That card is yet to be filled out completely yet, but that's who will headline that fight on April the 17th. So we're continuing to fly through 2021. The UFC continues to put on good shows. The question is tonight's card going to be a good show? Because I'm telling you, in researching for these fights, the 10 fights that we have tonight, I am just incredibly surprised that there isn't a little bit more power. And again, the Volkanovski and Ortega having to be canceled, that takes away a big powerhouse matchup, of course. But some intriguing fighters, but I think we're still going to have some good fights. It's just not going to have some of the great names that you could have had. Of course, Sean O'Malley, he's a fan favorite. Tyrone Woodley's on here. Jillian Robertson and Miranda Maverick's going to be a real interesting fight. Alonzo Minifield staying on the card. So there's some good stuff here for sure. There are some really hard names to pronounce on this card as well. So please forgive me for butchering any names that I do this evening. Again, the Belly Up MMA Show is brought to you by Manscaped. If you go to manscaped.com, then type in the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY, you're going to get 20% off your next order. And so make sure you go visit Manscaped tonight and make sure you take care of all your gentleman grooming needs, as they'll take you great care. You know, they've got all kinds of great products and things that'll help you. They get you prepared. That way you can be silky smooth there for yourselves. Manscaped.com, promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Get 20% off your next order. We're going to jump right into the fights tonight. and get you ready to go on a shorter episode this evening than normal. But looking forward to the fights that are ahead. Like I said before, we have one early prelim. It's Abu Azaitar versus Marc-Andre Baralt. Then 4 on the prelims, headlined by Alonzo Menifield and Fabio Cherant, Jared Gooden and Abu Bakar Nurmagomedov, Modestas Bukauskas and Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I think I said that right. Shane Young, Omar Morales. And then on the main card, of course, the main event, Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. Then Tyron Woodley versus Vicente Luque. Sean O'Malley takes on Thomas Almeida. Jillian Robertson versus Miranda Maverick. And to start off the main card, Jamie Malarkey versus Kama Worthy. So let's get into it. Get you your picks. Make sure that you are ready to go for tonight. Had a good week last week on our picks. We've had some really great weeks and we've had some really poor weeks all at the same time. And when everybody else is going around picking basketball games, stick to the fight game because it is great. But I want to say this. I want to point it out. Take it or leave it, I suppose. But when you're picking UFC fights, you got to pick them with confidence. You can't do none of this wishy-washy stuff. Our buddy Jay Henry, he was on the show a couple weeks ago. We'll have him back on eventually as well. He's in there saying he's picking Ngannou, but he really thinks that Stipe is going to win. That's a two-sided there. You can't do that. Stick to it. Get your guns ready. Stick to your guns. Pick a fighter, and you got to put it out for people to see, right? You can't say, yep, that's who I picked. If it's not anywhere for anyone to see, that's a problem. So make sure you go on. You can comment on this video and pick who you're picking tonight. Put it out on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever, so the world can see. And then that way you can brag when you get them right. When you get them wrong, you just don't say anything, and most people ignore it nonetheless. So make sure you get your picks in. Like I said, feel free to comment here on this video who you're picking tonight, Stipe or Francis Ngannou. It's going to be an interesting fight. We'll get to that one at the end of the program. Let's get into the first fight of the night and let you know who's winning. We've got Abu Azaitar versus Marc-Andre Baralt. I'll get you the odds up here for you to see. It's a pretty even odds right now. Azaitar at minus 105, Baralt at minus 125. Let's start with Azaitar. He's 14-2-1. He's coming in on a 9-fight win streak, but he's 1-0 in the UFC. So 9-fight win streak. He's only fought one time in the UFC. Azaitar, he likes to stay on his feet, and he does have a lot of decision fights in his career as well. They're not all decisions, but a lot of them are there. His last fight was in the summer of 2018, where he got a unanimous decision victory over Vitor Miranda. He had 2 fights scheduled in 2020. Both of them were canceled. So Abu Azaitar, he might be a little rusty getting in the old cage and octagon tonight. But at a 9-fight win streak, that sounds great. 1-0 in the UFC, that sounds great. Last fight, 2018. I'm not sure about that one. Marc-Andre Baralt, he is minus 125 here in the odds. He's 11-4. He's coming off of 3 straight losses, all 3 in the UFC. He's 0-3 in his UFC career. He lost 2 of those by unanimous decision and 1 by split decision. He does have a no contest in the UFC as well. He's also a fighter who likes to stay on his feet, not really grappling in this fight, which can make for a really fun fight when you've got 2 guys who are going to stand and just knock each other in the head. The question is will they do that, or will they kind of run from each other or get in the clinch or whatever it may be? But a really intriguing fight here. 3 losses for Marc-Andre Baralt. He has not been able to stand with the UFC talent. Abu Azaitar 1-0 in the UFC, but again, his last fight in 2018. Both guys standing, both guys fighting. I think this fight goes to decision, and my pick for this fight is Abu Azaitar. What do you think? What's your pick for this fight? Do you know these guys? Do you have any knowledge of them? Well, you got to do some research on them for sure. But Marc-Andre Baralt, just not being able to stand with the UFC fighters, and although he has more experience at this point than Azaitar does at the UFC, and even though Azaitar has not fought since 2018, I'm still going with the slight underdog, Abu Azaitar, in the early prelims of tonight's fight. Fight number 2 on the night, and is the first official card of the prelims, is going to be Shane Young versus Omar Morales. Morales, the favorite, minus 190. Shane Young, the dog, at 165. Shane Young is 13-5. He's got 4 fights in the UFC, and he's split them 2-2. He's not very active. In 2018, 2019, and 2020, he had 1 fight in each year there in the last 3 years. His first UFC fight was a unanimous decision loss to the one and only Alexander Volkanovski. But since then, hasn't had a ton of success either, but again, not super active. Omar Morales, he's 10-1, 2-1 in the UFC. All 3 of his UFC fights went to decision. He did have a round 2 knockout on Dancing with the Stars, Dana White's Contender Series in 2019, which got him the contract to the UFC, and now 2-1 in the UFC. I don't find this fight as standing out as being super entertaining. This one probably goes the distance as well. We've had some really quick fight cards over the last several weeks, especially those prelims really going quickly as knockouts are happening. But I think the first 2 fights of the night both go the distance on this one. I'm going to go with the favorite in this fight, Omar Morales, here at minus 190. His power seems to be a little bit better than Shane Young's, and I just like where he leans. So we're going Omar Morales to win the first fight of the prelim card. That brings us to the third fight and what might be the most entertaining fight on the entire card. Modestas Bukauskas versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. You say it 5 times, and then you can laugh at me. Modestas Bukauskas, let's see here, Bukauskas, both of these names are hard, plus 140 dog. Oleksiejczuk is a minus 175 favorite. Bukauskas 11-3 in his professional career. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He is an early finisher. His wins happen mostly in the first or second round, but typically earlier as opposed to later. His last fight was a round 1 TKO loss to Jimmy Crute. Remember that name because we're getting ready to talk about him again. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk is 14-4 in his professional career. He's coming off of 2 straight losses. He's 2-1 in the UFC. He also finishes his fights early, mostly in the first round, some in the second, even a few that trickled into the third. His last fight was a loss in round 1 by Kimura to Jimmy Crute. That's right, both of these guys, their last fight was against Jimmy Crute. Both of them lost. Oleksiejczuk, his other loss that he has in this 2-loss streak was by choke in round 2 to Ovince St. Preux. So he's fought some a little bit better talent than Bukauskas has. And at minus 175, I'm leaning the favorite here, even though he's coming off on a losing streak right now. We already told you this fight card is all about redemption. And so we pick Oleksiejczuk as the winner in the third fight of the night. But this is one you can't miss. This is one that you got to be on at the beginning of the fight because you're going to miss it if you're not there early. This one will not last out of the first round, if you ask me. So take the under on that. And then let's go to Jared Gooden versus a interesting name, right? Abubakar Nurmagomedov, who had a disappointing UFC debut. We'll get to that in a second. Jared Gooden at plus 195 is the dog. Nurmagomedov minus 240 as the favorite. Jared Gooden is 17-5 in his professional career, but he's 0-1 in the UFC as a unanimous decision loss to Alain Juban. He is definitely able to submit. He does have some TKOs on his record as well. He has a really exciting style of fight. It doesn't always turn into an exciting fight, though, depending on what his dance partner is like. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, obviously a familiar last name in the UFC world and MMA world. He's 15-3-1, but 0-1 in the UFC. He lost in a round 1 triangle choke to David Zawada back in November of 2019. He was stunned by that loss, as were many others as well. Nurmagomedov obviously has some bloodlines. He obviously comes from a fight club that is going to train and improve him and get him better. His most recent wins have come by decision. His early wins in his career were by round one knockouts for the most part. He had several technical knockouts, TKOs, and knockouts as well. So early in his career, he seemed to have that more power. Maybe it was just the people he was fighting, but nonetheless, later now in his career, he's really just going the distance with most people. This fight, I think, can be interesting, but I think Nurmagomedov is going to come in angry at himself for how he fought his last UFC fight, his debut fight, and I think he's going to come out and win this one relatively easily, get it to the ground, and submit Jared Gooden is my guess for tonight. I think it goes submission and lasts maybe into the second round, but Nurmagomedov at a minus 240. Not a lot of value on that pick, but I believe it is the right pick as well. The final fight of the prelims is Alonzo Menifield versus Fabio Cherant. And again, Menifield was originally scheduled to fight William Knight. That was going to be a knockout of a fight. Now he brings in and welcomes to the UFC in his debut Fabio Cherant. Alonzo Menifield, he is minus 290 favorite. Cherant is plus 220. Menifield, 9-2 in his professional career. Both of those losses came last year in 2020, one to Ovin St. Preux, and that was a round 2 knockout. And then he lost a unanimous decision fight to Devin Clark as well. In his 9 victories, Alonzo Menifield has won 7 of those in round 1, and the other 2 came in round 2. Menifield does not like the fight going long. He lost his one professional fight that went to decision there. He is again facing off against the UFC debut Fabio Cherant, 7-1 as a professional on a 3-fight win streak. He is a submission artist. 5 of his 7 victories came by chokes, the other 2 by unanimous decision. Fabio Cherant comes in against a very heavy favorite in Alonzo Menifield. He is somewhat of a late step in here, filling in for Knight. We're not going to go with the underdog and the debut guy tonight. We're sticking with Alonzo Menifield to win this fight by knockout, and we'll call it round 2 there for that one as well. So a recap of where we are with the early prelims and the prelims. We've picked Abu Azaitar in the early prelims. Then in the prelims, we've gone with Omar Morales, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, and Abu Bakar Nurmagomedov, and Alonzo Menifield to round out our prelim fights of the evening. Again, a reminder, tonight's episode of the Belly Up MMA Show is presented by Manscaped. If you go to manscaped.com, you type in promo code Belly Up Fantasy, you're going to get 20% off. That's right, 20% off your next order by going to manscaped.com, promo code Belly Up Fantasy as it scrolls across the bottom of the screen for you there for 20% off your next order. Now let's get to the main event of the evening. Actually, let's just go to the main card. We'll get to the main event in just a moment. The first fight on the main card is Jamie Mullarkey versus Khama Worthy. Mullarkey 26, Worthy is 34. This one's pretty even. Mullarkey at plus 100, Worthy at minus 125. Jamie Mullarkey's 12-4 in his professional career. He's 0-2 in the UFC, both by unanimous decision. Brad Riddell and Fares Ziam there earlier as well. He's on this 2-fight losing streak, and that's exactly where it's at. He's 6 foot with a 74-inch reach, which is pretty much the same as Khama Worthy. The favorite, Khama Worthy, he's 16-7 in his professional career, 2-1 in the UFC. Like I said, he is 8 years older at 34 years old. When Worthy loses, he loses early in the fights. But when he wins, he finishes people. This could be a really entertaining fight. I think the main card is going to be entertaining all the way through. But we're going to take the favorite here, Khama Worthy. I don't typically like to go when someone is that much older than their opponent. But this one, all the numbers just point to Khama Worthy being the winner tonight and lengthening that losing streak for Jamie Mullarkey. So we're going with the favorite, Khama Worthy. Now, on to the ladies, Jillian Robertson versus Miranda Maverick. Robertson, the plus 140 dog, Maverick at minus 165. Robertson is 9-5. She had 3 fights in 2020. She had a unanimous decision loss to Taylor Santos, a unanimous decision win to Poliana Botello, and let's see here, rear naked choke win in round 3 against Courtney Casey. Jillian Roberts has fought against some really spectacular fighters. She has some great experience under her belt, and she is great submission artist. She has seven, I said, of her 9 wins have come by submission. Miranda Maverick is the new toy, right, in the UFC. She is 0-1 in the UFC. 1-0 in the UFC. She is 8-2 as a professional. She's on a 6-fight win streak. By the way, 6 of her 8 victories have come by submission. So you've got Robertson with 7 submissions, Maverick with 6 submissions. Her only fight in the UFC was a round 1 doctor stoppage. And Miranda Maverick has the power advantage over Jillian Robertson. And I know she is the upcoming, the one that everyone likes. She's got the cool name as well. But this fight, I'm leaning to the underdog. And this one, Jillian Robertson, I like what she's done. I like the talent that she's fought against, the opportunity to fight against some really top-notch UFC fighters and other levels as well. Just really had a better practice leading up to this fight. Miranda Maverick has not really faced someone up to Jillian Robertson's standards, even though Robertson isn't great necessarily. I'm going to go with Jillian Robertson in this fight at plus 140, one of the better values you're going to get tonight. Not the best value, but one of the better ones for sure. A fight that people are talking about mainly because of hair, well, it's Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley and Thomas Almeida. Almeida is a plus 260 dog. O'Malley, minus 325 favorite. Thomas Almeida, 22-4 as a professional. He is on a 3-fight losing streak. Again, this is the motto tonight. We have several fighters, 13 coming off of losses. Thomas Almeida is one of them. When he wins very fast, but the problem is he hasn't won in a while. 4 of his last 5 fights have been losses against John Martinez, a unanimous decision. Rob Font, round 2 TKO. Jimmy Rivera, a unanimous decision. Cody Garbrandt, a round 1 TKO. His last win was a round 2 TKO of Albert Morales. Now, he was one of these guys that was talked about as the next great, someone who can contend and all those sorts of things, and then he's just fallen off. And tonight he's facing Sean O'Malley. He is 12-1 in professional. His last fight was a round 1 loss to Marlon Vera. He has 9 finishes. 7 of those were knockouts. 2 of those were submissions as well. Only one of those, by the way, goes to the decision, or his 1 loss, was a submission. He hasn't fought really any big names. Sean O'Malley is a guy who has been able to build his play a little bit. Everyone kind of knows who he is because he's got the wild hair and all those sorts of things as well. But O'Malley has not really fought. His biggest name was Eddie Wineland, and you can argue that's a big enough name. But nonetheless, it's not Rob Font, I don't believe. It's not Cody Garbrandt, who Thomas Almeida has fought as well. So at plus 260, Almeida is kind of a really interesting look at this one. And there's definitely value to be had there. We're not going with it, though. We're going with the favorite, Sean O'Malley. I believe he extends the losing streak for Thomas Almeida and maybe begins Almeida looking for a new fighting organization to fight with as well. But we like Sean O'Malley in this one for sure. It could be a good fight, though. We will see. Nonetheless, like I said, I think all these main card fights could be incredibly entertaining. I don't think any of them are going to be boring at all. Now let's move up to one of the fights that I am most excited about. I've got 3 fights that I'm really excited about. The Stipe Francis one, obviously. This one, Tyrone versus Luque, and then the third fight of the night, the Bukauskas versus Oleksiejczuk. I'll get it right one of these days. Tyrone Woodley, plus 195 dog. Vicente Luque, minus 230 favorite. I was really surprised to see the number that far apart. Woodley is 19-6-1. He's coming off of 3 straight losses. This is going to be his first 3-round fight since 2015. All of his fights since then have been 5-round fights. This is a 3-round fight. He early in his fighting career, he had lots of knockouts and TKOs. He finished fights early, but now he tends to go deeper into the rounds. His last 3 losses were to Covington in round 5 and Burns and Usman in unanimous decisions. He's going against Vicente Luque at minus 230. He's 19-7-1 while on a 2-fight win streak, one of the few fighters coming in off of win streaks, and he is a finisher. His best win was against Mike Perry. That was a split decision, but he was able to finish Nico Price and Randy Brown as well. This number really, really surprises me that it's this far apart. I'm going back with the old champ, Tyron Woodley. I think he is going to come, and he is going to show up, and he is going to give you what you expect out of Tyron Woodley. I believe he is as desperate as he's ever been, which could cause you to think he's going to force things, but I actually think he is focused. I've listened to a couple interviews with him this week, and everything went off the rails when he tried to do a rap career, and that kind of flamed out. But nonetheless, he is a great fighter, and I believe Tyron Woodley understands where he's at in his career right now. He needs a win, and this is a fight that he should win. I think it goes to decision, but I think it is an entertaining fight all the way. 3 rounds. Give me Tyron Woodley, the underdog in this fight. This is the best value you're going to get tonight. There are a few other ones that obviously you could go for, and if they win, then you're lucky and it works out for you. But I think this is the one, the most guaranteed underdog to win tonight. Tyron Woodley at plus 195, beating Vicente Luque. All right, let's go to the final fight, the main event of the evening. The champion, Stipe Miocic, at plus 110. Now, I've seen this number all the way up to 120 and all the way down to plus 100. So it has been going up and down, and depending on where you're looking is where you're going to find it. Francis Ngannou at minus 135. Let's start with Ngannou, the challenger. He's 15-3 in his professional career, coming off of 4 straight wins. In his 15 victories, 8 were round 1 wins. 2 of them were in round 2, and those are in his 10 UFC fights. 8 round 1s, 2 round 2s. That's pretty crazy. He has a slight reach advantage at 83 inches over the 80-inch Stipe Miocic. He did lose to Stipe in 2018 by unanimous decision. He's got some great wins. His last 4 wins were against Blades, Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, and Rosenstrike. So obviously he has fought some great fighters, losing to Stipe and to Lewis as well. But he has fought some guys, and we know he's got the power, right? You know, Francis brings the power. He had a great interview with Joe Rogan. I know I'm not supposed to necessarily promote other people's podcasts, but a great interview with Joe Rogan, worth a listen. Go back and listen to it. But Ngannou, he's coming in. He's on a roll now, and I don't think he thinks he can be beaten. Then you got Stipe Miocic, the champ. He is 20-3 in his professional career. He has 6 KOs, knockouts, or technical knockouts in the last 8 wins that he has. He is, let's see here, his last 3 fights have all been against Daniel Cormier, and he's 2-1 in those fights. His last loss was in the summer of 2018. Before that loss in 2018, he hadn't lost since 2014's fight against Junior Dos Santos. He's beaten Mark Hunt, Arlovsky, Verdum, Overeem, JDS, and Ngannou, all in that span before his last 3 fights against DC. Listen, Stipe's the champ. I don't like to go against the champ. The champ is a champ for a reason, and Stipe has proven that he is the champ, right? He has fought the best of the best, and he has beaten the best of the best. Francis has the power advantage, sure, but Stipe is the greatest at this moment in this division, and tonight is not going to be Francis Ngannou's night. Stipe Miocic, and still the champion after this fight is done. Stipe is so smart. Stipe is so wise. Stipe is not going to get himself in trouble, and I believe that he is as in shape as he's ever been, and he wasn't out of shape before. Stipe is ready for this fight, and again, when you're the champ until you lose. I don't go against the champ. I'm not going against Stipe Miocic tonight. So I've got Stipe maintaining his belt in tonight's battle against Francis Ngannou. I think this is going to be super entertaining. 5 rounds, I'm not sure that it'll last 5 rounds. I think, the longer it goes, the better Stipe's chances are at winning. But I'm not sure that this one lasts that long. I think Stipe's out to prove something tonight because he still has so many doubters. Being the underdog as you're trying to retain your belt, that never sits well with the champ. And so we're going with Stipe. Others on the main cards, we're going to give you the whole roundup. Tyrone Woodley, we're going with him over Vicente Luque. So Woodley and Miocic, both underdogs. We're going with O'Malley over Almeida. We're going with Robertson, the underdog, over Maverick. Then we're pretty much favorites from here on out. Kama Worthy to round out as he starts the main card. On the prelims, we're going with Alonzo Minifield, Abu Bakar Nurmagomedov. I keep saying this name, and I'm probably saying it wrong, but Oleg Sheshuk, we're taking him over Bakaskis. We're going with Omar Morales over Shane Young. And the first fight of the night, we're picking Abu Azatar at minus 105. He's a slight, actually, dog with Marc-Andre Baralt, but that one's a pretty even fight for sure. Again, next weekend, no fights. So we'll be back with you in 2 weeks for the April 10th fights. But these are our picks. Make sure you get your picks in. Do not hide your picks. Put them out there for the world to see. Let the world know, because when you're right, it feels so mighty good. But we're in for a great night. UFC 260. Make sure you tune in. Early prelims and prelims on ESPN Plus. Of course, the main card on pay-per-view through ESPN Plus as well. Today's Belly Up MMA show is brought to you by Manscaped. Make sure you go to manscaped.com, type in the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY, and you're going to get 20% off your next order. That's right, 20% off by going to manscaped.com using the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Belly Up MMA show tonight. I'm Vince Stover. I host the Sports Stove podcast, and would love to have you come over and join us there. We're currently going through baseball previews. We are having an interview next week with Harry Hunsucker, who made his UFC debut last weekend against Bam Bam Tavasa. He'll be joining us next week on the Sports Stove podcast to talk about that fight, the preparation for that fight, those 4 days that he had to get ready, and then also what is next for him as he earned his UFC contract there in that loss by stepping up and fighting Tuivasa. So make sure you get over to the Sports Stove podcast and get prepared for that podcast episode that'll be dropping later on this coming week. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Belly Up MMA show. Enjoy the fights.